Good morning. Good morning. Happy Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday. Hello, welcome. My name is Yanira, and we'll be reading the last of The Child I Left Behind. Thank you. Just start better. Okay, let's get started because I'd like to get this book wrapped up and on with the next. Good morning. Chapter 31. Chapter 31. I didn't hear much from Leah after she got pregnant. I'm sorry. I didn't hear much from Leah after she got her apartment. And these days, I'm not much in contact with her and Sydney, but I'm in a lot more contact with myself. After my trip to Sedona, I sat and reflected on my life and all I had learned over the past 4 years after taking my journey with plant medicine. It was a difficult process, and it took a lot of courage and strength to face the wounds within. I look at myself in the mirror and face the truth and take responsibility for how my wounds played out through the journey of my life. I look at how I unintentionally hurt Leah. I was so blinded by my wounds. I ran from them, buried them deep, projected them, and medicated them with work, school, new projects, alcohol, or anything that kept me from being still. It took being still and facing the wounds within to discover the source of my pain, and it drove my behavior and my decisions. My wounds were the underlying juice that fueled the vehicle of my life. In many ways, along with my drive and passion, they drove me to be successful, compassionate, and kind to others, loving deeply and giving generously to those in need, and in ways they helped me. And in some ways, they were detrimental, especially with Leah. I also believe there are no accidents and everything happens for a reason. I can see clearly that my life has been an incredible journey of the heart. I know as a therapist, one difficult or tragic event in someone's life can change everything. I had multiple ongoing events throughout my life that resulted in what we in the psychological field called complex trauma. I came from loving parents who meant well, and I also struggled through poverty, heartache, abuse, neglect, and pain, and faced obstacles that were mountains to climb to attain success unimaginable for someone who had the challenges I had. I learned from great masters that if I can believe in something, change my limiting thinking from lack to possibilities, and take the necessary steps, I could achieve anything, and I put my heart into it. I am grateful for these lessons and for those ambitions to create a better life and live the American dream. I worked hard overcoming so much to prove myself. I was enough and I was worthy. From wounds, from the unfolding, were fueled by my determination to move beyond poverty and focus on abundance. By the time I was in my mid 30s, I had built a significant financial foundation, but I didn't believe or trust it. I didn't think it was enough. I was still struck in scarcity. These ingrained generational beliefs were difficult to overcome. They were like poison in my subconscious mind. They clouded my perception, and I lived my entire life through the lens of not enough. So I built more. I couldn't stop. It was like an addiction that was fueled by the fear of returning to the life of heartache, even though it didn't make logical sense. Nothing was ever enough because I didn't feel like I was enough. As soon as I finished one degree or made a business successful, I started another one. As soon as I built one dream home, I started focusing on building the next project. Since the results were success, it was easy to ignore the dysfunctional pattern I had created of always striving but never arriving and running myself into exhaustion. I had everything I have ever wanted, but no matter how much I attained, it was never enough to heal the pain inside. I recognize now the answers I was seeking were within me. I also appreciate what Jesus told me. There is nothing wrong with striving success, money, education, or material things unless you become your master and rule your life and you become their servant. My mother was very judgmental and highly critical of me, and I became a perfectionist and an overachiever. I can see how that she was a young mom with three other children who was exhausted by an overachiever child who was relentless and determined to do things her way. It completely overwhelmed her. I didn't know how to constructively manage my hyperactivity, so she did what she knew how to do, verbally chastise me. She constantly riddled me with statements like, Angel, you can't do anything right. You're just always in the way, getting into something and rattling my nerves. Why can't you just sit still? Why do you have to be bad all the time? Why are you just the devil? You are so clumsy and careless. Why do you have to talk so much and ask so many questions? Can't you ever be quiet for a little while? It's enough to drive me crazy. Why do you have to be so picky and hard to please? Why are you so needy all the time? Nothing is ever enough for you, is it? You're always causing trouble. You never give me a minute's peace. Why can't you just settle down? You are going to drive me to an early grave. I know she didn't mean to hurt me, but as a kid, those messages are like poison, and they were in fact infect your mind and become your inner voice. To a child, I not only heard these messages from her, but from most of my family. I took on these messages and they crushed me. I felt damaged. I was extremely hard on myself, and it drove me into a state of depression and burnout, trying to be enough. Just like my deep gratitude for the new path I'd found discovering Wayne Dyer's teachings, I also now that without plant medicine, I also realize now that without plant medicine, I wouldn't have awakened to the insights, understandings, enlightenments that was necessary and absolutely what my soul needed to begin the healing process. This path is not for everyone, and it isn't a quick fix. Actually, it is a deep journey within, and I am grateful I have found the answers my soul needed so I could be free and at peace. I am so grateful for it. Took away my need to lean on alcohol and freed me from that struggle. It has taken me a lot of years to really embrace and let go of the self blame, guilt, and shame I felt as a mother for a difficult decision I had made to leave Leah. It's helpful to believe that she chose me and Charlie to be her parents and that we had a soul contract to complete because we each had lessons to learn from each other. I spent a lifetime trying to overcome, overcompensate, rescue, repair, fix, and undo the damage I caused by having a child at 14 years old with a man who brought me the greatest pain and heartache I ever endured and who taught me some of the greatest lessons in my life. I believe it was all necessary assignment, and everything plays out the way it needs to for each of us to face our challenges and decide if we are ready to learn the lessons that we are divinely chosen before we came here, or we continue to face the challenges of repeating them until we do. Through the journey with Charlie, I saw the power of destruction and parental alienation. I never knew it had a formal name until I became a therapist and worked with families going through custody battles. I experienced it firsthand and it was heartbreaking. The first time I'd learned about it, I was working with a large family with many children, and one of the parents had ostracized two of the children, and one and the other parent had isolated them. The ostracized children and the other parent couldn't understand why the siblings' children wouldn't talk to them and treated them so badly. They were very confused and reported how painful it was to be rejected and hated by their parent, spouse, and their siblings or children whom they loved. It broke my heart to hear these stories. I also listened to the alienated parent who was so hurt and scared that they were losing the children who stayed behind because they refused to have visits or spend time with them. It was heartbreaking to see the toll it was taking on them. And it took 4 years, 4 long years of court battles to finally help this family reunite and be whole again. Two other therapists and I worked together to understand this very complex and disturbing case that was fraught with abuse and alienation. Through our research and studies, we found the CA Childless Psychiatry and Dr. Richard Warshak, both of whom wrote several books and recorded videos on this very disturbing complex abuse that surfaces during highly conflictual divorce and custody battles. The term parental alienation syndrome was first coined by psychiatrist Richard Gardner, MD, in 1985, and later became a known psychological community as parental alienation and is defined by the NCSC.org, the National Center States Course, as a strategy whereby one parent intentionally displays to the child unjustified negativity aimed at the other parent. The purpose of this strategy is to damage the child's relationship with the other parent and turn the child's emotions against the other parent. Parental alienation. Aha, that's it. I remember thinking when I learned about this, that is what Charlie did to Leah for all those years. I felt validated to know I wasn't crazy. I knew something sinister was going on, but I couldn't label it or explain it. I knew for the first time I had the name for what I had gone through with Charlie: parental alienation. What an awful thing for a parent to do to their child. As a therapist, I learned that often it comes from child abuse, attachment disorders, or trauma in the parent, and they play out their wounds through the child and punish them. After learning about this disorder, I worked for years to teach or reach other therapists, lawyers, and the courts about this very destructive abuse that is detrimental to the parent child relationship. What I know in my case is that it caused a lot of damage to mine and Leah's relationship. I don't know if she ever got past what I imagine was ingrained, brainwashed, indoctrinated, constant bombardment of villainification, poison, lies, and pressure to reject me that were spun in her mind about me while she was growing up. I'm not sure of the emotional or mental toll it took on her for being punished because she loved me or enjoyed spending time with me and had to lie about it or hide her true feelings. I'm not sure how it affected her being ridiculed, criticized, and negatively judged because she was left handed like me or had my qualities, any of my qualities. I am not sure the toll it took on her being interrogated after returning from visits with me that lasted hours if she didn't give the answers they wanted to hear, and they wouldn't relent until she gave in. Imagine I imagine it contributed to her feelings of not being loved and accepted, and it reinforced that her feelings didn't matter and I wasn't safe to love. And in fact, it was punishable to love me. I imagine she also learned that love was conditional by the constant indoctrination of the message: if you love your mom, you won't be loved and accepted by us. It breaks my heart what she went through. I often wondered if the generational pattern of parental alienation continued with Leah as grandparent alienation. Did Leah, out of her own fears and insecurities and wounds, say things to influence Sydney in a negative way toward me? I noticed starting I noticed starting around her preteens after Leah moved into our rental, Sydney began to change. Her attitude toward me was more negative, and things were different in our relationship. It got worse when she came to live with me in senior year in high school. Was I de- denegregated, put down, and demonized by her? Was she told negative things about me? And was I blamed over them losing the house, even though I did everything to help, encourage, and plead for Leah to do the right thing? I don't know, but I felt it. And intuitively, over the years, it felt evident, unless you see it through the lens of alienation. I may be wrong, and I take responsibility for my judgments and any hurt I have may caused. But I do wonder what happened. I know that children love both their parents and have qualities from them each. And when a child is made to feel that the parent's love doesn't love them, or is ridiculed or punished or degraded in any way because they love the other parent, or are like the other parent, or wants to spend time with the other parent, the person who gets hurt the most is the child. It is emotional abuse and creates cognitive dissonance and deep wounds. They feel like they have to protect the wounded parent who is doing the degradation, or they will lose their love or favor with that parent. It can still it can instill the belief: if my parent doesn't love me or something is wrong with me, there must be something wrong with me. And often those wounds and poisons last a lifetime and harm a child's self-esteem and potentially a healthy relationship with the other parent. And it is very sad and an unhealthy thing to do to a child. I think subconsciously these deeply held messages kept her guarded, and I don't think she had ever allowed herself to get close to me out of fear and distrust that were placed in her heart and mind when she was a little girl. I still don't even think she really knows me. I think she only knows the person she thinks I am. I would never wish this kind of hurt on any parent, grandparent, or child. And of course, I had part in the dysfunction too. I wanted to save Leah from suffering the heartache and worries I had gone through and experienced when she suffered or made a poor decision. It triggered me and made me so angry at her for not getting her life together because I could see how it was creating chaos and pain in her life and in my life too. As an empath, I felt her pain as if it were my own. Deep inside, unaware of it, I wanted her to stop hurting so I could stop hurting. What I didn't realize at the time and came to learn through plant medicine and shadow work with Stephen Tuhig was that I was projecting my pain and wounds onto her. I also know for the first 7 years of a child's life are crucial, and what is learning during that time is carried with the child throughout their lives. She grew up in a sheer chaos most of the time. Perhaps when things were too calm or quiet, it created anxiety and discomfort. So subconsciously, she created the chaos she was used to and was comfortable with it. She also grew up with a generational poverty mindset, and it is hard to overcome our programming. Our beliefs are so powerful, it is uncomfortable to shift and move from a place we have always known into uncertainty and the unknown. It takes a lot of courage or pain to change, and many times, many people choose to stay comfortable or stuck even when it's difficult and harmful. I also saw my younger self in Leah during the struggle she had with Brad and wanting so bad for things to work. I could feel her pain and see myself as a very young girl waiting for Charlie to come home from work when he was seeing Elaine and was hoping he was going to choose me. I could see how myself through her emotional and financial struggles and trying to find her way. I remember those early years when I was 16 years old, on my own with no one here to help or even give me any ounce of encouragement. I could also see how hard she tried to work and pulled Brad up. I saw her frustrations when he wouldn't help her, and I could feel how devastating that was. I wanted to help her so much, but I just didn't know how to do it without being dysfunctional because I was wounded too. When I looked at her life in poverty and pain, it resembled the life I imagined I would have had if I had stayed with Charlie. The pain of seeing her stuck in a place triggered every cell in my body, and I wanted her out and save her at any cost. I projected and judged and criticized Leah because that is how I felt about myself. Not intentionally, I didn't even recognize what I was doing. Once I was able to see this and turn within and find the wounded little girl inside of me and help give her what she needed, it helped me in my healing process. Looking back now, I can clearly see how the wounds from my childhood and teenage years drove my behaviors and my life. I saw the world through the darkness, these wounds, and unforgiveness of myself, which clouded my perception and kept me from seeing clearly. It took a lot of work to clear the windshield and to see the mirror past my wounds and pain and recognize that it wasn't about Leah or Sydney. It was about me. It was my inner child and inner wounds that were screaming out for my attention. I was the one who needed rescuing, and I was the one who needed to heal. I've learned that we each must take our own hero's journey. My life and struggles were my hero's journey. Leaving Charlie was one of my calls to action. I had to face my circumstances and fears and decided which path I would take. I could wallow around as a victim or stay stuck, or I could make a different choice that would require me stepping out of my comfort zone. I choose to face the uncomfortable, difficult obstacles that stood before me. Another call to action was realizing that chaos helping and trying to control others, especially Leah, caused in lives caused in the lives of those I loved. When I was in grad school, I read a beautiful story that illustrates this dynamic very well, but it didn't really sink in at the time. Then one morning, while going through the eviction with Leah, I remembered this story and realized this was powerful medicine for me. The butterfly story, author unknown. One day, an old man found a cocoon of a butterfly and scooped it up and took it home and placed it in the windowsill. He watched the butterfly struggle for hours, trying to emerge from a small hole in the bottom of the cocoon. Then it seemed to stop making any progress. So the man wanted to help the butterfly, took a pair of scissors and cut a larger hole in the cocoon. Soon the butterfly flopped out with a swollen body and shriveled up wings. The man continued to watch, expecting the butterfly's wings to emerge for it to fly. Neither happened. Instead of reaching its potential, the butterfly spent the rest of its life crawling around in its belly and never could fly. What that man, in his kindness and haste, didn't recognize was it was necessary for the butterfly to struggle through the small hole, forcing the fluids of the body into the wings so it would be ready for flight when it emerged. Sometimes struggles are exactly what we need in our life. When we went through our life without any obstacles, it would cripple us. We would not be as strong as we are, and we would never fly. The butterfly story. Sometimes we can't recognize what is right before our own eyes. We can see and give advice to others in similar situations, but our own wounds are often too close for us to see. When I painstakingly realized through looking within, I prevented Leah from launching into adulthood much earlier and finding her inner strength by constantly rescuing her from the challenges and struggles that were necessary for her to find her inner hero and overcome the obstacles that were placed before her. I unknowingly did this because I was stuck in this pattern of being hopeless, a hopeless helper, a codependent who was compelled or addicted to help her. And without awareness, I started to do the same thing to Sydney. I knew better, especially as a therapist, but in my own life, it was difficult to see. Thank God my eyes were open, and I finally woke up from the delusion of my pain and wounds so that I could set them free and ultimately set myself free. I made so many mistakes with Leah and later Sydney, just like my mother made so many mistakes with me. But she didn't rescue me. She let me live with the consequences of the choices I made. I was angry with her for not helping me. I felt like she should have. The desperation I felt of not having anyone to help support me when I was so young drove my addictive helping behaviors because I didn't want anyone to suffer the pain I had gone through. I'd help others because I wanted so desperately for someone to help me. However, a part of me feels grateful to my mom for leaving me out there homeless sometimes, alone, without anything. I can see now it was what I needed, and it was one of the greatest gifts she's given me. To leave me alone so I could face my greatest challenges, take my own hero's journey toward finding my own way to victory. And I made it, and it made me who I am. Leah and Sydney didn't want or need me to rescue them. They really just wanted me to love and accept them and get out of the way. They are both so powerful, beautiful, amazing, and their light is so bright. I know they will find their own way to what works best for them in their lives. I will always pray that someday they will come back into my life and we can find love and acceptance for each other without judgment. I have felt their judgment over the years as well, and I understand the pain of judgment and the desire to be free from it. I do hope we can have a relationship that comes from the heart, based on pure, unconditional love. But here's the hard truth: just because you are the mother or the child or a family member, it doesn't mean that things always work out the way we want. When I finally let the truth in and got to a place where I could no longer stand the pain and constant wallowing around it, I decided I'm not going to live on this street anymore, and I'm not even going to live in this neighborhood. I'm done causing myself pain and heartache, and I am moving on. I have come to terms that Leah, Sydney, and I may not be able to find common ground, even though I know we all love each other very much. It takes a lot of surrendering to accept that sometimes things don't always work out as we hoped. I don't know what the future holds. I do accept that it is okay to let go and surrender with love and peace. I also trust that if it means to be and healing can occur, that love will find a way. Even if we can't find common ground or have a relationship, I am also so grateful that they came into my life and were the two greatest teachers who helped me heal the deepest wounds within and have shown me how deep the human spirit can love. Mama Aya and Jesus were right. When I heal, they can heal too. What we were all searching for is freedom, love, and acceptance without judgment. Freedom to be who we genuinely are. Freedom to explore and live the way we choose. Freedom to just be free and be in peace. I believe we find what we are seeking if we can be still and look within. I know we all have the capacity to heal and create with love a more beautiful world and situation and relationships that only our hearts can imagine. That's the end of the book. I wanted to read the epilogue. That's the end of the book. Completion. Let's read the epilogue, conclude the live. The epilogue, a love letter to the child within. I have changed, grown, and healed so much in writing this book and going through this journey. I have learned that there are many parts of ourselves that hold our wounds, just like all the chapters holding this story. This is why there are many layers to our pain. We pick up these wounds along our life's journey at different times and ages and through different events or trauma in our life. If we can't deal with them at a time because it isn't safe or we don't have the capacity to do so, we often bury these wounds and carry them throughout our life as our own inner child, our own inner wounded child. It is through tapping in and connecting with the wounds within that we can heal. One very helpful technique I learned through shadow work with Stephen Tuhig is turning within. He taught me that when I am triggered, I must acknowledge, notice, feel into, and allow myself to feel the wounds, pains, and disturbances. Then ask the feeling, if you had a voice, what would you say? Then listen and acknowledge the voice. Then go within, all the way back to where the pain originated from, when the first time the pain was ever felt. Notice what is happening and what the inner child needed but didn't get. Then he guided me into the hero within, the powerful higher self that has been kind and helpful to others and and have that part go back and rescue that wounded little one by giving that wounded part what it needed. This is some deep shadow work and often requires a trained guide to help you navigate this journey. I am grateful for learning this technique through Stephen's work and his organization, Mastering Change. I have also learned some similar techniques through my studies with Dr. Dick Schwartz, the well known marriage and family therapist, through his internal family systems theory. I'm also grateful for the higher self and for finding her within. She is the higher self, wiser, inner mother that I've always needed, and she is always within me. Here is the letter she wanted to give to my inner wounded parts I call my inner child. Dear angel, my inner child within, I am writing to tell you I have compassion for you and recognize that you have suffered by taking on the wounds of other wounded ones. You are a beautiful, loving child, and you came into this planet in pure love and light of God. You are special, beautiful, and a unique divine child of God. The high energy, sensitive, hyperactive, picky, boundary pushing, fussy, determined, relentless child that you are is a beautiful part of who you are, and it has caused triggers in others who are wounded and couldn't handle the overwhelming and powerful way you showed up in this world. It didn't make you bad or the devil the way you were told. These were gifts that weren't able to be received by your family because they ruffled feathers and were overwhelming. These were very attributes, were gifts that led to so many talents that you have. It took a lot of strength to take responsibility, to face the wounds within, look in the mirror and see yourself as you truly are. It took a lot of courage to face the pain, heartache, and shadows and do the work necessary to finally free yourself from the prison of guilt, shame, self judgment, and fear that you carried for over 40 years. I'm so proud of you. The challenges you faced were opportunities to find your gifts within that gave you the sheer determination to face the many obstacles, to overcome so much. Your empathy and compelling desire to help others not suffer came from your struggles and created the compassion, caring, generous, loving, kind, amazing, successful person you are today. And I am grateful for who you are. You are deserving for all you ever needed. You are loved so much unconditionally, flaws and all. I accept you as you are without judgment. I am here for you anytime you are feeling low, hurt, triggered, abandoned, rejected, hated, scared, spiraling from the wounds within. I promise to do my best to notice and be aware when you are hurting and come up and help you go within and find the source of the pain and give you what you needed but didn't at the time. I know the people who hurt you didn't intend to cause you pain. They were just projecting out the pain they felt inside that you, in your behaviors or your responses, triggered and mirrored in them. And the fierceness of their response reflected the depths of their suffering. It wasn't about you at all, it was about their wound. And I'm grateful that you have such a loving heart and have learned to forgive and send them love, all of them. But perhaps most importantly, I'm so grateful you are finally learning to forgive yourself. It wasn't easy going through all you have went through as a young mother. You were such a baby yourself. I can see how difficult it was to make the heart wrenching decisions that you made. You too, like Leah, your mother and grandmother before you, were also a child that was left behind to fend for themselves on your own. And I know you did the very best you could at the time. I forgive you for continuing this dysfunctional codependent patterns of hopelessness, helping, rescuing, and fixing. I know it was out of guilt and shame and desperation to stop your own pain and to give Leah what you yourself didn't get. I know you were doing what you felt was necessary. I forgive you. I forgive you for what I know you have felt was unforgivable. Being a mother who left your child behind. That part. I know it felt like a scarlet letter of shame that you have worn on your heart.
and have beaten yourself up so much over the years for leaving her when she was so young and the decision you made as a mother. But I know you really did your best and you knew how at the time. Honey, I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you for all the mistakes you made as a mother and a grandmother. I know you will continue to make mistakes because you are human. And I will always be here to nurture, love, and support you as you work through the lessons that life has to teach. I love you from the deepest part of my soul, and I'm always here for you. Always. Angelia, your highest self, wisest self. Namaste. Well, as you can see, this is a tear jerking book. Excuse me for the emotions. It's the end of the book as well. The first read of this book, I was sobbing. Thank you so much for joining me.